See yourself in the camera?
Yeah.
Hi. Hi, everybody. We're doing our stream from home today. So I'm going to get your questions, and your eye is going to help me answer them, huh? Yeah? You help me answer them? Oh, goodness. Oh, gosh. So it looks like we got a couple of people in here. We'll give some time for everybody to get in. Julia, welcome. Glad that you're here.
I need the floss.
Yeah, we need to go floss afterwards.
Ha! Ha!
I appreciate you saying that you like the training and that it was worth every penny. I super appreciate that. I'm glad to see you have gotten in. I know we met kind of on the YouTube stream with Propelio last week, so awesome you're here. Glad to have you. We're going to have... yeah, he's got some hair, doesn't he? Oh, thank you. So if you guys have questions on the stream, then tag Ika. Do at AICA. I think it's Ika Valdez. And Ika, it looks like you just commented under ours, so maybe tag us. But maybe that's the thing to do is tag Creative Cashflow. What she does is she will put the questions, thank you, into a or a Google document for us. Thank you, baby. I can like my kisses. Thank you. And that's where I will go through and answer all the questions. You are in a kissy mood, huh? Oh, cover your mouth. Cover your mouth if you're going to cough. Yeah, Joe says he's got more hair than both of us together. Whoa. There's your floss. Okay, so we will jump right in here. I'll answer some questions for you guys, and then keep them coming throughout the stream. All right, so the first question that I have on here is, how do you pay your agent when you are selling an owner-financed house? From Rod. I used to pay 3% to an agent to basically handle the sale and the buyer side. Now we're coming to I don't know if agreement's the right word, but decision to basically allot for a full 6 on agent's fees, because owner financed sales. Oh yeah, I don't want that in my mouth. You had that in your mouth. That's for your mouth. Buyers are just harder to come by than they used to, and so there's a couple of things that you can do. So we are in the midst of hiring inside sales to handle our sales side, because I'm gonna just have people in-house to sell all of our properties moving forward. With that being said, there's a couple of different ways that you can do.
There's a string right there.
Yeah, go get it. There's a couple of different ways you can pay your agent. I don't know. Go find it. It's right there. You can pay them with a percentage, with like volume. It kind of also depends on your volume. Like one of the things that we're going to be doing is, or we're considering on our agent side, is basically the inside salesperson gets 2% for a base. If they do not have to use another agent, in other words, they are the only agent that's being paid, we're giving them 1% bonus. So they get their 3%. And then if they, because remember they have a 2% base, if they sell more than like 5 properties in a month, we will retroactively pay them another percent, so that they would have gotten 3% on all of those. Plus, if there wasn't another agent, the 1% bonus. So that's one way to handle it. Another way to handle it is, if you do have inside sales, giving them a sliding scale, much like you would with an or with a wholesale dispositions person, but also kind of including them into the cash flow. I'll tell you my philosophy here that I'm reaching into for that is that I'm finding that the agents that are going to be working with this stuff are more interested in kind of the long-term aspects of the investment side. And so if we can feed into that and keep them on board, is the theory that by giving them cash flow, giving them something that they're not vested in for 4 years, 5 years, something like that, to where, you know, basically vesting meaning if you quit before your 5-year or 4-year period of time is done, you're giving up all of your residual incomes that you've caught on this. But we're basically taking the same strategy that insurance companies do. Insurance companies, they're making $3-4 a policy, but you do that a whole bunch a year, and it adds up to be some good money. So that's one of the things that we're looking at, possibly including in our disposition side, to keep the people motivated. Because here's my theory behind that: is not everybody can do owner financed stuff because not everybody understands it. So if I was going to move into a new area and need a property manager, I could just go pick any Joe Schmo realtor off the street and make it happen. If I'm going to go in and do, wholesale dispositions, I can just pick any Joe Schmo realtor off of the market and do it. You can't just necessarily pick any Joe Schmo and go do owner financing because it is a different skill set. You got to know how mortgages work. You got to know how to negotiate that side of things. So the onboarding process is longer and more involved on the owner financing dispo than it would be on any other kind of dispo. So from a selfish standpoint, what we talk about outwardly, I'm like, hey, if you get them included in the cash flow, it meets their needs of what they're looking for a little bit better, and it holds for retention. But from the selfish standpoint, if we can hold retention from that, that's a big deal because our onboarding process is going to be so much more involved than the onboarding process for just any other, whether it's finding a realtor to list your wholesales or finding a dispo person for your wholesale. That's anybody can do that, right? So we're investing more to keep people around so that we don't have to keep turning that wheel and bringing new people on. Now, let's say you're not doing the volume for that. Just reach out to an investor. I say investor friendly. I think that word gets overused, but an investor friendly, owner finance friendly realtor here in Dallas. Mary Lou Gonzalez can handle that for you. We are actually. I hope I'm not overstepping or pre-announcing too early, but we're actually going to be. It looks like I'll be opening up a real estate brokerage, and once we kind of really unscrew where the owner financed buyers are now that they haven't been in the past, just nationally from a systematic standpoint, using the resources and skills and time and money that we have to put towards that, we will be kind of opening that service up to other people. So eventually, hopefully by Q4 of next year, we will have the systems all set in play where if you need to sell your house with owner financing, maybe Creative Cash Flow Brokerage is going to be the place that will help you out with that. But I hope that answers your question on that. So we will go to the next question. Grant, can you please talk through the logistical flow of using private money to acquire a property? Say you've been networking and have a few private investors interested in placing some capital with you. Now a wholesaler calls you up and property already sitting in preferred title company and it needs to be closed and blah, 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 blah. Who do you get to write up the mortgage, note, and deed of trust? Does the private money lender always wire the money to the title company? What if they are also paying for rehab costs? Do they wire the extra? Who do they wire that extra money to? And does the private lender have to attend the closing, or can you have them complete everything in advance and on their schedule? So the first question is, who do you get to write up the mortgage, note, and deed of trust? I've been using Matt Aycock for most of my doc prep for stuff like that. He's just super sharp. I love Matt. He's a brilliant attorney. You can reach him at Aycock, Aycock, at prattaycock.com, prattaycock.com. Just tell him I sent you, and he can do doc prep. It's fairly inexpensive for you, for your lender. Obviously, it depends on your state. If you are not, he is in Texas, Tennessee, and Florida. If you're outside of one of those three states, you'll need to get your own attorney for that state. Now, because of our national push, you can reach out to me first and see if I have somebody there, because we are getting the right attorneys in all the right states for that kind of stuff. I've also got a great Ohio attorney, a great Michigan attorney. We just got our Pennsylvania attorney because we've got a property we're taking down in Pennsylvania. So different states will have, and don't forget his medicine too. Oh, sweet. Different states we may have an attorney connection for you. But yeah, you just get the mortgage in a mortgage state, or the deed of trust in a deed of trust state, and then you get the note drafted up with them. And then if you are, like in this example, closing with a wholesaler, Koopa, don't wait. Then yeah, it's exactly that. Your private lender is just going to wire all the money to the title company. Now this is between you and your private lender. Now when I work with private money and I've got an acquisition plus a rehab, the entire amount gets wired in all from day one. We get the entire amount out and we go and do our rehab. Sometimes lenders, if you are not super experienced in the industry, they may not be comfortable with doing that with you. The way that it works on that point in time would be more of what's called a draw system, and this is how hard money lenders do it. And it would be they're going to wire to the title company, the acquisition that goes to the seller, so the seller gets taken care of, and they may or may not wire enough to get you started on your rehab. But then what happens is you do $5,000 worth of work, and then you reach out to your lender and you say, "Hey, I've done $5,000 worth of work. Please wire me the funds," and they will go inspect the property and then wire you $5,000, and it's a reimbursement more than an upfront thing. And then lastly, does the private lender have to attend the closing? No. As a matter of fact, the private lender doesn't even have to sign on any of the documents unless they are lending lending out of their IRA account, a self-directed IRA account, which would mean that they have to. They're just signing where it says read and approved by. Thank you. You like my shirt?
Yeah.
I hope y'all are okay with me just being relaxed and chill tonight as I'm like my PJ shirt. Usually we do this from the fancy studio at the office, but I go to a mastermind on Wednesday in Utah. So I'm going to be gone, and I'm not going to be able to see this little guy for several days. And so I wanted to spend some time with him tonight. And so we're doing the stream from here tonight. Go find mommy. Go find mommy. Tell her your pants are dirt, or your pants are wet. Are his pants wet because he got his hands washed? Or
yeah.
Oh, okay. So yeah, please. I know we've got a few people who joined this last week. It's not usually just disheveled like this. Usually it's fancy and in the studio, and I'm drawing and being fancy. But tonight, I wanted to spend some time with my family before and after the stream, so I am here. But I think I answered. Oh yeah. If you're doing an IRA lending, they have to sign a document, and it says read and approved by, and they have to sign that before it gets sent to the IRA. If they're just lending cash, they don't even have to sign anything at all. You're signing the note and the deed of trust. So there. Good question. Julia says, and again, welcome Julia. Glad to have you. Suppose you buy today at 125, sub 2, and wrap it at 150. Buyer defaults 4 years later, and the actual value of the home has now dropped to $85,000 and $90,000. Would you do that? And would you do that in that situation? And or what would you do in that situation? Been taking in the CCF Academy the last few days. Great training worth every penny and then some. Been consuming. Thank you so much for putting out such great stuff. You're awesome. Thank you so much, Julia. So first of all, the likelihood that it drops that far below is unlikely, just in those numbers alone. But the short answer of it, which is the long answer, which is the real answer, is if your values aren't there when you've taken the property back, rent the property until the values come back up. The values will eventually be there. And you should have bought the house in such a way, part of the process of analysis in your deal is seeing if you can cash flow on that deal. And so you got to make money somewhere. You got to make money either in the equity of the property or the cash flow of the property. You can do a deal that has zero equity in the property if you're getting cash flow. You can do a deal with zero cash flow if you've got a ton of equity, right? So in your example, if you're doing a deal, your payment should afford you to be able to rent that property and either A, still make money, or B, at least break even. It's very unlikely that the rents and the sales price are going to drop so low that you're unable to do either one of them. But yeah, just hang on to that puppy until the values come back up and then resell that property. Now, the cool thing about that is to use your timeline. Let's say that it's 4 years later. Well, guess what? You just paid down 4 years of the underlying lien. And then say you have to hold it for 3 years, say. I mean, it's probably not going to happen like that. But then now you've paid off 7 years of the underlying lien. So you may only have 15 years left on your debt at this point in time, and you're starting a new 30-year mortgage with a new down payment and all that kind of stuff. You're really set up to make a ton more money over the long term. And that's the other side of things, is that the likelihood, frankly, that you've dropped underneath your sub 2 value is slim. But it can happen, and so you just rent until that thing comes back up. But even if it is like, basically you're like, oh man, I've got no equity in this thing anymore, but you're cash flowing, well, you just paid off 4 years of the loan, right? So you can still sell it, you can still get some cash flow, and then you're going to just make all your money on the back end because you're paying for such a shorter amount of time than you're being paid. So that's kind of where that goes. Matt's contact info would be M as in Matt, Aycock, AYCOCK, at prattaycock.com, prattaycock.com. Jermaine says, Grant, just to hop on that question, do you have a lawyer and title company you would recommend in Florida? Yes, Matt Aycock. M-Aycock at CreativeCashFlow.com. Matt has offices. He's got 2 offices in Florida. He's got an office in Tennessee. He's got 2 offices here in Dallas. So he's definitely not just a small-time dude. Whoa, did I already finish all of my questions? This may be the shortest. Josh popped in. When and how do you present and disclose to your end buyer on a wrap that they are buying a property that's been acquired sub 2 concerning the due on sale clause, etc.? That's another good question. We do that at the negotiations table. We get all of the agreement on the price and terms and all that kind of stuff. The way that I'm going to pose that to the seller to the buyer is as we're going through the disclosures. Either I will have already talked about it ahead of time, which is ideal with the due on sale clause, but you don't just say like, hey, this property has a thing that has a due on sale clause in it. You're going to say the reason we are able to do owner financing on this property is because we have debt with the bank. And that is basically the reason why anybody is able to do owner financing is because somebody has provided them the lending to hold this property and then sell it to you. Everybody gets that. And then you say, when you have lending with the bank, 99% of the time, there's something in it called the due on sale clause that says that when you sell the property, the bank has the right to require all of those funds to be paid off at that point in time or anytime they're forward. So essentially, I'm not going to say every one of them, but at least 90 to 95% of the owner financing you've seen done out there has been done with this due on sale clause in existence. So we want to be super upfront and let you know that that exists, but we also want to be clear that it's not a fear that we have of happening, because at the end of the day, what does the bank want? You let them answer, and they're going to say their money, and you're going to say, that's right, they want their money, they want their payments. So as long as you're making your payments, historically speaking, as long as payments are being made, the banks aren't calling this due on sale clause. Now, that said, I can't guarantee everything because I don't have a crystal ball, and I can only guarantee the things that I can guarantee, the things that I have 100% control over. And I don't have 100% control over that. That said, we've never had to deal with the due on sale clause. We've had to do a lot of these things. And I take that, actually I take that back. I don't say we've never, I say we've only had to deal with, so the numbers that I'm able to use is that my partners and I have done over 15,000 of these things, and fewer than 10 due on sale clauses have ever been called. And even of those 10, none have ever led to go to a foreclosure state or anything like that. So we just tell our buyer, you just need to understand that if we run into a situation where a due on sale is being called, we have to be all hands on deck. You got to be ready to work with me. I'm going to work with the seller. We're going to work with our attorneys, and we're going to do everything that we can to get that fixed up. I've never had to deal with somebody losing their house because of that, but it is possible. So we just need to talk that out and make sure that you're on board and understand that before we move forward with this, right? And then you will typically have a decent little conversation about it. But again, we are confident that it's not an issue. So just conveying that confidence to them is important. And so yeah, that's how I handle that. But that's a really good question, Josh. Istad says, is there a different owner finance disposition strategy for properties over and under $250,000? Yes and no. I'm going to say yes in the way of don't go above $250,000. I'm going to say no in the way of if you go above $250,000, it's no different than if you're below $250,000. It's the same thing. But the problem is, I don't even like going above $150,000 anymore. We used to say it's a $200,000. I don't like going above $200,000, and I have a hard cap at $250,000. Now I don't really like going above $150,000, and I think I'm about to put my hard cap at $200,000 because it's just the buyers are a little bit different. That being said, the how do you do it? It goes into backing into the deal. Log into the Academy, watch the backing into the deal video so that you can understand a little bit better about what I mean by that. But essentially, look at what the house rents for, back out the taxes and insurance, and then whatever you're left with and servicing, whatever you're left with is what can be the principal and interest of your buyer's loan. So you've got to figure out what that interest rate is. Now, when you're typically in these properties of $250,000 and above, those interest rates are not going to be much more than typically 8%, which is fine. I would again, watch the other video on there called Prefer P over I. I would always want you to go for principal over interest. But also be understanding that, especially if you're taking down private money to get this deal and your interest that you're paying is more than the interest that you're receiving, It doesn't mean that this will happen, but it does mean that you should print an amortization schedule for both your acquisition debt and your debt with your buyer, and see if there's ever a moment in the amortization table down the road where you've got less principal with your buyer than you do with your lender, because that's a problem that you need to be aware of, because you never want to get underwater. And so just be very aware of that. If you're charging 6.5% to your end buyer, and you're paying 8% to your private lender, depending on how much equity you have in that deal, there may come a time where down the road in 15, 20 years, you're underwater with principal balances, and you need to be aware of that going in. So that's my advice on getting into those higher end properties. It's just the most ideal situation is if you're in the 1% rule, where a $250,000 house is renting for $2,500. But more often than not, $300,000 houses, at least here, are renting for 0.75%. The rent rate is like 0.75%. So it's like $300,000 house is renting for $2,200 or something like that is pretty common. So I know that's why. So like this house that we're in, this was a sub 2 house. It's a really nice house. It's a 300 and what was it when we got it? 350 or something a few years ago whenever I got it. But it's a 350 house whose payments to the bank are $2,200, and it rents for $2,300. It just doesn't make sense as a deal. It makes sense to live in it because it's a low payment for a beautiful house, but it doesn't make sense as a deal, right? So the other hard part about doing properties that are above that 200 or 250 mark is how many people, say you're doing a $400,000 house, because people identify owner financing and they're like, well, we can do really expensive houses because nobody else is doing it. I can hit that market. So I'm going to go do a $400,000 house. Well, let me ask you this. How many people, because you've got to get 10% down, how many people are going to have $40,000 in their bank account plus closing costs and not be able to get a loan from the bank? How big is that demographic, right? Versus how big is the demographic of people who have $10,000 in their bank account and can't get a loan from a bank, or $15,000 in their bank account and can't get a loan from a bank? It's much different numbers. So the likelihood of you being able to sell on those higher end properties gets slimmer and slimmer and slimmer, and you've got way longer days on market with those. So I just recommend staying under that 200, especially staying under that 150. Now, there's going to be people watching from California, New York, where that doesn't even, you're like, those houses don't exist. Here's my theoretical answer that I don't have a practical experience yet to back up, but we'll figure it out as we're expanding out through these different markets and getting everything put together is, I'm just making sure okay. Is we look at the median price of the area, divide that and go between a quarter of that number and a half of that number, and you should be okay on owner financing. But again, I don't really have practical, that's a theoretical thing that I'm giving you, and what you will find, well, not what you will find, what happens, what I know as somebody who has done this on a large scale. There's a lot of people that will Facebook fluffy flex on you and act like they know what they're talking about, and everything sounds good in theory, but then it's like from somebody who's actually done it, I'm like, yeah, it sounds great in theory, go do it, not gonna work, right? This may be one of those things that I'm being that guy, but I'm at least giving you that warning. I've told you my stance of, hey, people have $15,000 in their bank account, they don't have $50,000 in their bank account, but if median prices in the area are $500,000, that would imply that the jobs over there are paying well enough to support a median house range of $500,000, and so perhaps you should be able to do a 125 to 250 sweet spot and get that to work. So the theory is take the median price in your area, do a quarter to a half of that. That's pretty much going to be your sweet spot. And then the further away you get from that, the harder it's going to get to fill. I have a seller who's wanting to sell to us, but is tied up in a subject to transaction with another investor. Per the seller, the investor has not paid them settlement charges for purchase and has not filed the deeds. Monthly payments have not been made as well. Does the seller need to evict or foreclose to sell to us? Home is vacant. Depends on if they already closed. If they already closed, then yeah, they gotta foreclose on that person, get the deed back, even if it's not been recorded, but they signed that stuff, you can be screwed if you go in there and buy it without that happening. Now, you can help them do that, and you can get them connected with the people who might be able to help with that. But no, it's not an eviction because the subject to investor is not renting the property. Subject to implies transfer of ownership. But you would need to, the seller would need to foreclose, get the property back, and then they can sell to you, which is a hassle, but that is what it is. What happens when you buy a home subject to, and then the seller files for bankruptcy on said home? It's not a big issue at that point in time because they don't own the house, so that does not get included into the bankruptcy. You do need to, if you get notified about this, or if anybody gets notified about that, obviously you want to try to be in constant communication with your seller on this, but just show the trustee proof that this property is no longer owned by your seller. Shouldn't be an issue. Because they can't put something in the BK that does not belong to them. Rod says, I'm new. I've done a few reps. Congratulations. I've never paid a realtor to find a buyer, but heard that you do. How do you pay your realtors? I found all my buyers through Craigslist. I actually answered that one. That was the first thing that I answered. So you can pop back up there and do that. Also, do you use Scott Horn's IMAP docs and disclosures? Yes, I do. I absolutely think those are the strongest in the business. I am currently still working on getting contracts white labeled. We've got their retainer fees all paid. We've been working with the attorneys. There is progress being made on that. We're just not done on it yet. I'd like to give you timelines. Unfortunately, they gave me a timeline that was completely unrealistic. So I'm just not going to give you timelines. I'm going to tell you, wait patiently. We are getting it done, but I am getting white labeled contracts so that I can provide those contracts for our students. Because Scott has asked me and asks everybody not to use his documents outside of closing with him or to give them to anybody else. So I can't give them to you. And out of respect for him, I'm going to not give them to you. So, but yeah, Scott is who I use for my closing docs. And again, I believe that his docs are the best in the business. From a national scale even. Awesome. Perfect. I think we got through our questions here. I'm looking through this. This is cool. This was like a freaking shotgun round. We got some stuff answered, got it going. I enjoy that. I love having you guys here. So holiday schedule, I believe we're pretty much on for everything. I will be here next week. I don't know what the holidays look like past that, so we'll just kind of play it by ear, but I will be here next week. This weekend, I'm going to a mastermind. Who knows? I might bring back some cool stuff for you from that. Yeah. I have some cool news on our selfish side. Looks like I just got approved for $50 million of spending next year and $200 million of spending for the next 7 years after that from a bank out of Mississippi. That was a pretty big boy conversation meeting that I had with the CEO and CFO of that company, that bank. But it was pretty cool. Looks like we're going to be able to go out there and freaking dominate the market. So I'm excited about that. Oh man, Rob, that is so awesome. He says, I've spent an embarrassingly large sum of money in gurus and you are the best. Dude, that's really cool. Thank you so much for flattering me there. All right, guys. And Homer asks, which mastermind? It's a secret. I don't remember the name of it. It's in Utah. It's expensive though. It's $35,000 a year. My partner was already in it whenever we got in, and we'll see what it's like if we keep going there and stuff like that. But the mastermind you should be in is the Creative Executives Group, which is again, actually, I guess now it's next week. So our price goes from $17,000 to $25,000 next week, and so if you are interested in joining the mastermind, go to CreativeCashFlow.com/memberships, hit the button to apply because it's going to show you my calendar. Just book a time for us to chat and see if this is a good fit for you. Because I'd love to have you in there. I'd love to have some more people who've got something to bring to the table. We've got a lot of really good players in there. People who haven't done deals, people who've done a ton of deals. Wherever it is, if you're smart and you're ready to go to that next level, you fit in the room. So we'll have that together. And Estad, yeah, 250. It's not even just 250. It's 50 next year and 200 every year for 7 more years. They're committing like $1.3 billion to me in my model. So this is real, guys. It's the real deal. We are making this work nationally. And when I say we, I'm talking about you and me. Like all of us together in this community are making this work, and people's ears are listening. They're seeing it get done the right way. because you're learning from somebody who knows how to do it the right way, and that makes a difference to these guys. That they're seeing that it's a real model, and they want to put their money behind it. So it's pretty exciting, pretty cool stuff. And by proxy, you guys will get benefit of that because once I prove that model out with them, because we look to close, like I said, 500 next year, and then we look to start doing 1,000 to 2,000 a year for the next 7 after that. Once we prove this modeled out, then they're actually going to open up more capital for us to even push through people that I trust like y'all. So the first people that will get access to that will be my creative executives group. So again, that's another reason to get involved with that, because it's going to go to my inner circle first to prove that out, and then it'll get to the general public after that. And Emmanuel, I see you there, man. You can be on the ground. That's awesome. I super appreciate that. And we take that, seriously. I mean, Josh is working with us now. He's helping us out on a property we've got in Tennessee because we picked up a random property in Tennessee, and he's the freaking man. And he's just like, dude, I'm here. I'm ready to go. Let's do it. And we will be pouring a good chunk of money into Tennessee to try and work together with people that we want to work with. So cool stuff. All right. I love you guys. I'm going to go hang out with my little boy. Glad we were able to get some questions answered today. I hope you guys have a good rest of your evening. And, we got one more question in before I'm leaving. You're still taking some more questions. Is that a command? That's funny. Are you still doing direct mail? What is your best seller lead besides referrals? Yes, we are doing direct mail. Direct mail is our best way of getting sellers. And again, I don't want to be overly pitchy here, but Ronnie is flying in from Michigan, and we will literally be showing everybody in the Creative Executives group on day 1 of our mastermind in January, which is January 10th, literally the postcard we're sending, literally how we are analyzing each zip code to figure out which zip code we are sending to, and what our system looks like to funnel that out. And we averaged in October a 4.3% return rate on postcards, and we acquired in October 19 properties that we actually were able to take down out of, how much? Well, it's $2,000 a week. So it boiled down to basically $600 of marketing per closing off of the postcards that we are running. So if you want to know like the exacts on how we're doing that, like I said, we're literally going to show the postcard we use. We're literally going to talk about the system that we're using. We're going to show you the logic that we used to pull those lists, but that only goes to the executives group because we can't let everything out to everybody, or else like we'd have 16,000 people sending postcards to the same people we are, and that defeats the purpose. Not defeats the purpose, but it makes it much harder on us. So I'll give you philosophy and stuff, but yeah, it's about list stacking. It's about the right zip codes, the right list, the right area, the right postcard. But that is 100% how we're doing most of our deals. We do JV with people, but our deals come from postcards. And Andrew, thank you. Thank you for the congratulations. Glad to see you on here. I think that now sums up our questions. I'm on a delay, so I'm calling it now. But again, I love hanging out with you guys. Thank you for being here. And I'll see you next time. Bye. I said that. That was supposed to be a really smooth transition into my logo, but that's not what happened. Let's try this again. Well, here's the thing. If I just hit stop, to make a long story short, it cuts me out before the before the stream is caught up. So you're just going to watch me stare at the camera for a minute because I can't get my logo to work here.